Hello, everyone. So, last night I wrote an article explaining why I wouldn't be selling the tip to buy the dip because everyone's become hip to these cycles that we allegedly go through with Bitcoin that relate to the halvings, where in a year like 2021, which is the current year, you would expect Bitcoin to pump all year as a response to the halving in supply that happened in 2020 and the market slowly figuring out, the dynamics of the supply and demand of it dictating that we would start flying up. And the early people, right after the halving in late 2020, start buying up all that they can, and it cascades, and eventually you end up like we are in 2021, just flying up and up and up with complete reckless abandon, and a new group of people become aware of Bitcoin, and that adds to the hype and all that stuff. And allegedly, all you smart people getting involved now are thinking, I've seen the cycle. We've watched it play out in 2013 and 2017, and now it's 2021. It's 4 years again. I'm going to sell at the top. And then I'm a Bitcoin believer. I love it, but it's going to go too far. I'm going to sell at the top, and then I'm going to buy back once it's crashed all the way back down and get myself more Bitcoin. I'm a genius. Now, I'm not going to do that. I've never done that. It doesn't make sense doing it for a whole bunch of reasons. First off, tax. Selling and buying back incurs a huge tax bill, and if you make any mistakes, if you do, most of the jurisdictions I know will say that if you're doing a bunch of trades, then you're not going to pay capital gains anymore. That's your job. You're a Bitcoin trader, or even worse, a crypto trader, and they're going to say this is your job. And if there's a lot of money on the table here, you're losing up to 40-50% of what you might make as tax. Most traders lose money. When you take tax into account, even if you make money, you end up with less than if you just held onto the Bitcoin in the first place. That's a big reason, and that's a huge disincentive. And tax is the reason why I don't fuck around with the markets ever. I buy Bitcoin if I can, and I don't do anything with it unless I'm absolutely making a big change in my life where I have to, I don't know. But that's reason number one, taxes. The second reason is asymmetric risk. I don't want to risk my Bitcoin, which is, in my opinion, prone to become the dominant world currency at some point soon and displace everything else, and everything else becomes stuff I don't want to own in comparison. I don't believe in anything else as a store of value. I believe other things have utility, but nothing else has store of value like Bitcoin does. I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin in the hopes that I'll be able to get more cheaper, because what am I holding in the meantime? It'll be dollars, and I don't want dollars. And I don't want dollars that I don't need right now. I only want dollars as a medium of exchange. They are crap as a store of value. They are guaranteed to lose value. If I end up holding onto them for a year while I'm carrying out this trade, they are losing 15% of their value relative to their purchasing power that year alone. That's expensive. Bitcoin doesn't do that to me. Bitcoin rewards me for not spending it. The dollars don't. I don't want to be stuck in that shitty asset watching Bitcoin fly up and up and up. It's a project I love and I've committed my life to for the last 10 years. I don't want to do some fancy speculative play and be out of Bitcoins while I hope that the market crashes, because I don't hope the market crashes and I don't want to be out of Bitcoin. So no way am I going to do it for that reason as well. And there's even more things to get with, to be privy to here. You don't screw around with something like Bitcoin. You don't try and be too clever for it. It's gonna fly up, and at some point, this boom and bust cycle has to end. In my opinion, that very well could be this cycle. Yeah, we had a supply shock in 2012 and an ensuing bull market in 2013. The same thing happened in 2016, and we had an ensuing bull market in 2017. But back then, the inflation rate of Bitcoin was a lot higher because block rewards were a lot higher. Now, the current inflation rate of Bitcoin is less than the inflation of gold. We are about 1.3% a year increase in the supply of Bitcoin, or the total amount of Bitcoin available. That's less than gold. And unlike gold, If Bitcoin's price starts flying up, more people mining doesn't mean that the inflation rate increases because of more availability on the market. Doesn't happen with Bitcoin, remember? Because when more people start mining Bitcoin, the more difficult it gets to mine Bitcoin. So the inflation rate will remain at 1.3%, which I think that's the right number. It's definitely around that. It's between 1 and 2%. That's amazing. That means I'm quite prepared for this to be the cycle where fiat finally begins its obvious death spiral in front of the entire world. I think that's going to happen this time. I don't guarantee it, but I think it's about a 30 or 40% chance. That means I have a 30 or 40% chance of my Bitcoin becoming worth an infinite amount relative to the US dollar this cycle. That's the risk I take by trying to do this whole sell the tip, buy the dip strategy. The risk I take is missing out on that. And I put that at a 30 or 40% chance of happening. The reward I'd get for doing the buy the tip, sell the tip, buy the dip strategy, the reward I would get for it is maybe, if I time the trades really well, 40% gain in the amount of Bitcoin I own, minus all the fucking taxes, having to deal with all the headache of that stuff, and holding something I fundamentally just don't believe in for a certain amount of time in a bank that I don't trust not to have it confiscated from me. I don't know if a year from now I'm still going to be able to buy Bitcoin the way I can buy it now. The minute that cycle, I don't know if you're going to be able to get back in. I think I fear regulation coming along that makes it really difficult to own Bitcoin in a non-custodial fashion where you are the owner of your coins. There is certainly going to be a Western country pretty soon that brings about legislation that says, yeah, you can still buy Bitcoin. It has to remain on whatever exchange you bought it on. You're not allowed to withdraw it to a wallet that isn't belonging to another regulated institution. So, yeah, you can buy your Bitcoins on Bull Bitcoin, but you can only withdraw them to ShakePay or some other hosted wallet, but you can't withdraw them to a wallet that isn't hosted. I can see that happening easily, and fuck that. I don't want that. I need my Bitcoin under my control. And I know what it's like buying Bitcoin that is outside of the financial controlled, the regulated financial system. You have to use BISC. BISC is amazing. Use it whenever you can. But how much does it cost to use BISC? Let's have a look right now. The current available offers on BISC for me to buy using Canadian dollars, the cheapest I can buy for is 9% above market rate. That quickly goes up to 12, 15, 20, 20, 25, and 27%. There's about 9 trades available right now. They're starting at about 10% above market rate, and they end at 30% above market rate. It's expensive. And now you can buy on an exchange and basically have the same effect. Yes, I can buy on an exchange, withdraw to my wallet. Yeah, there's a history out there. There's knowledge of what's going on with my Bitcoins. There's blockchain. There's information in the blockchain, but I can reestablish privacy for any Bitcoin I've purchased. I can put it through a mixer. I can put it through Wasabi Wallet. This is a decentralized thing. No one can ever stop me from doing that in the future. But if I buy through BISC, that's different. I basically, there's only one other party, and it's not a regulated money service business. It's just a private individual, maybe, because it's actually hard to know who they are. And that's sort of the point of it. But it's decentralized peer-to-peer trading. But because there's fiat currencies involved, when you're sending them an e-transfer or something like that, and they're sending you Bitcoins, identity gets leaked. And it's a pretty messy system, but nonetheless, being forced to use that in a situation where people can't own their own coins anymore, because remember, Bitcoin is something you can own. And how many fucking things can you really say that about? You don't own a house. It's leased to you by the government, even if you buy the house. First off, if you've got a mortgage, you definitely don't own the house. The bank owns the house, and they let you live in it as long as you carry on making mortgage payments. You don't actually own it. You don't own the money in your bank because you can only use it for purposes that they say you can use it for, and you can only access a tiny amount. If you've got 100 grand in the bank, you can only access fucking $3,000 of it a day in Canada. More if you're paying, guess what, a bill. What are the companies that are on the bill payment drop-down menu? A drop down menu is a pre created list by an authority figure that says these are okay companies. You want to pay a gas bill, electricity bill, you want to pay a credit card bill? Okay, all of these companies fall inside the jurisdiction of financial regulation, so you're allowed to move as much money as you want to them. But if I want to just send $20,000 to my friend, in Canada, there isn't even a way to do that, really. I mean, you can get a banker's draft, but I mean, the whole way bankers' drafts and wires are set up in Canada is deliberately to dissuade you from ever moving large amounts of money in a way that comes outside of what they're allowing you to do, which is you can only really move large amounts of money in a way that we say you can. If you want to do anything weird, like send a bunch of money to a Bitcoin exchange, $3,000 is your limit, unless you want an absolute pain in the ass and to spend an hour in a bank branch. And we all know what's coming with that. You're not going to be allowed to do it unless you have a vaccine passport, or that's coming, and that's it's already there in New York. They've already got the vaccine passport. That's not far off. So this is all a bit of a tangent, but I'm saying I don't trade Bitcoin because any Bitcoin that I own is stored inside a wallet that I generated myself, that is under no one else's control but mine, and there really is no other form of ownership like it. When it comes to your house, it's the same situation as the banks, the money in the banks. Your house, you can have your house. The land your house is on is not owned by you; it's owned by the government, and they will let you use it in accordance with an implicit agreement that can change at any time without your consent. They can say, okay, it's not okay for you to live there anymore, and that renter you've got in there, you're not allowed to kick them out, and you're not allowed to charge that much rent for it, and you're not allowed to build that extension, and you're not allowed to do whatever the fuck. You're not allowed to build a balcony. You're not allowed to build a deck. You're not allowed to build a shed because it's too close to the perimeter. There's a million rules and regulations that should show you that your fucking house isn't your house. It's the government's house, and they're letting you live in it. Bitcoin is the only thing you can actually own, apart from stuff that no one, at least on the level of being an international, powerful financial weapon. Nothing else is. You can own like a rubber duck you have a bath with. Sure, no one's concerned about that, but that's not got any of the utility that something like Bitcoin has. This is you can send $1 billion of value around instantly as something from you to someone else, and change ownership from 100% ownership of you to 100% ownership of the person you're sending it to, wherever they are, whatever time it is, without anyone ever being able to stand between you and them. This is beyond powerful, and that it's such an important characteristic of Bitcoin. And you walk away from all that when you're forced to use these centralized services, and there is a big push for that. And I don't want to get caught. And when I minimize the amount of times I spent. Like, people forget the purpose of Bitcoin is to build a parallel economy that doesn't have any of the pitfalls of the current economy that's controlled by a completely corrupt and financial opium addicted economic elite who just cannot stop printing money. That's their opium, because every time they try, it hurts too much. And it's this is all Max Kaiser's analogy, and it's a great one. And yes, central bankers do try to stop printing money every now and again, and then the stock market crashes, and then they have to start again immediately because they have to maintain all the asset bubbles that are slowly destroying our society, and they have to maintain the inflation rate that is the only reason that people are still struggling despite all the developments we've made as a species. So all that being the case, Bitcoin is set up to do something entirely outside of that system. And when you interface with that system, when your Bitcoins are sitting in exchanges, when you have to send dollars to exchanges to buy Bitcoins, then you're within that jurisdiction again, and you need to minimize the amount of time you spend in that, because that's how coins get lost or confiscated, or, the Bitcoin sitting in an exchange has very little difference to dollars sitting in a bank. Yes, it's not going to go down in value like dollars are in a bank, but everything else sucks in exactly the same way. So don't do it unless you really have to. So people that are talking about, yeah, I'll just sell here and buy back here. I'm like, yeah, there's so much going on there that you really don't want to be doing, even if you don't lose money on the trade, which is far more than likely. Everyone knows the psychology of markets is just designed to trick humans and make us make mistakes. You don't. What happens? I mean, what are we sitting at now? $56,000. So you get clever. You're saying, I'm going to sell at 200 grand. I'm going to buy back at 120 grand. Boom. What happens is you're going to sell at 200 grand. It's going to fly up to 300 grand. It's going to fly up to 400 grand. And you're going to think, fuck, this is it. I'm missing out. I'm going to buy back. And that's when it crashes on you. So now you've just halved your stash and now you're watching half of the amount of Bitcoin crash. That's what's much more likely to happen. I don't want to set you up to fail if this really is your strategy, but trading is not how you win with Bitcoin. If you want to go trade, do it with a traditional asset. Do it with crude oil stocks. Do it with Wall Street bets and bet on whatever the meme stock is of the day. Don't screw around with Bitcoin. It's far too serious for that. If you can own Bitcoin, own as much as you can, stay humble, stack sats, don't screw around with it. Minimize any exposure to centralized platforms. Use it the way it's meant to be used. Get your Bitcoin, keep it on hardware wallets, keep it on Bitcoin Core if you can handle it on a laptop you completely trust with everything verified. If you want to do that, hand roll all your transactions. Don't even be making any transactions. Just receive Bitcoin. That's the proper way to use this stuff. If you're trading Bitcoin, you don't understand Bitcoin. You're missing the fucking point. And it's infuriating because it's finance and it's attracted all these degens and all these professional traders, and everyone is just... We've got 800,000 Bitcoin sitting on Binance. I don't want to see that. 800,000 Bitcoin is about 4% of all the Bitcoin. That's not good. Oh, wait, have I got that right? A million is 10% of 10 million, so it's 5% of 21 million. Yeah, exactly. So it's about 4% of all the Bitcoin that there are. That's not good. What happens if Binance turns around and says, Bitcoiners shouldn't be allowed to do X, and we control 4% of all the Bitcoins, so now 4% of Bitcoin can't be used for the purpose we just decided to ban? Fuck that. What happened? How many users have got Bitcoin sitting in BlockFi in order to get interest? BlockFi have said, we'll close your account if we catch you doing any mixing or any of these perfectly legal strategies, by the way. But Bitcoin mixing is how you break chain analytics companies that are the fucking evilest institutions on the planet. They're the ones spying on the Bitcoin blockchain and analyzing the data within it to try and de-anonymize people and figure out who's doing what. Because Bitcoin it's public information, but it's not got an identity system within it. People have to figure that out after the fact. And that's a very annoying thing. Like, obviously, inevitably, someone was going to do it, but I don't have any... I have nothing but hatred for the people that actually do it. That it's no excuse that we knew it was inevitable. Yes, all blockchain data is public. Yes, if you make your Bitcoin address public, chain analytics companies will watch everything you do and figure out where your money's going. Luckily, it's largely a snake oil industry, and they can't really claim with any assertion, like they can't really assert with any certainty that coins are doing what they say they're doing. You can withdraw coins from a regulated exchange if you buy coins on ShakePay and you send it to address XYZ. Chain analytics company, yes, they can know. Government can know, yes, this is Bitcoin Mechanics address XYZ. But then if I move address from XYZ to address ABC after that, that could be another address of mine, or it can be anyone's address in the world. They don't know anything by that point. And if I use only some of it, and some of it goes to ABC, and some of it goes to DEF, which is a change address, they can go, well, the small amount, that's probably the change amount. No, we don't know. And this guy generally does transactions at night, so we reckon ABC went to someone else. DEF was a change address that went back to him because all this is bullshit. Chain analytics is kind of a fraudulent industry, but what they're trying to do is an evil, evil thing. Not a big fan of this. And anything we can do to obfuscate and ruin the linkability within the blockchain. These technologies exist now. We've got CoinSwap on the way. It's on testnet at the moment. CoinSwap is fantastic. If you have 1,000 bitcoins, you can go boom and swap with someone else's 1,000 bitcoin in a way that the blockchain is unable to figure out. And that is a way of you cleaning your entire stash in one move. That's fantastic. We don't have anything that good yet on the main chain. What we have on the main chain is coin join, which is less good because you can only do it in specific amounts. So you can only do it with 0.1 of a Bitcoin. That's it. If you don't have 0.1 of a Bitcoin, then you can't do this protocol. If you have 0.11 of a Bitcoin, then you can coin join 0.1 of it, but the remaining 0.01 remains completely attached to the previous history in the blockchain. So you can't clean that. Only multiples of 0.1 can be made clean, and it needs to be slightly bigger than 0.1 because there are transaction fees for every coin join. And there are other ways as well. You can use decentralized markets to buy a shitcoin and then come back to Bitcoin, and that pretty much breaks the linkability of it, but not completely, because there's someone somewhere knows what happened with that. Anyway, so understanding what Bitcoin is and how it plays into not just into the regulatory environment, but also into the macroeconomic environment. Yeah, this wasn't supposed to be the phase where the blow off top and then the horrible bear market in 2022. Yeah, that was all kind of predictable, and most people expect it, which is one of the reasons I think it won't happen. The market always has a way of going against the majority, because that's not just Sod's law. That is, there's actually a very technical reason for that, which is, if everyone thinks the market's going to go down, everyone has already sold because they're expecting it to go down. And when everyone has already sold, there is no one left to sell to make the price go down. So the price can only go the other direction, which is up. That's the weird evil of the market, which is everyone thinks this thing is going down. So that means it just goes up. Weird, but true. At the moment, there's that to consider, but also just the macroeconomic environment is just so fucked for fiat currency. Governments are doing everything they can to make Bitcoin seem like the only option people have. Billionaires have decided there's no other option, and they're all buying. What really saddens me is that there aren't enough noobs and plebs and middle class people that are jumping on this yet, because it's not going to be too late for anyone ever, because Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. It's not got an end date, at least as with regard to everyone alive at the moment. Maybe after some centuries things change, but for my lifetime and for my kids' lifetimes and for my kids' lifetimes, I'm not expecting Bitcoin to go anywhere ever. Not for that. Not within that anyway. I don't mean ever, of course. But all that is to say, we are printing money like crazy. We are destroying fiat, and governments can't help themselves. And Bitcoin is the obvious place to go now. And my point with that was, everyone that isn't getting involved now is just going to get in eventually, because you're not going to have any choice sooner or later. One factor in it that is the final death throw of fiat currency is when governments begin the last desperate practice of printing their own money to buy Bitcoin. That's the final sign you've got to watch for, because it won't last long, because people will very quickly just stop accepting government currency, because they're saying, you haven't really done anything to earn this, and Bitcoin can't ever be printed like these dollars can, so we're not accepting it anymore. That's a hyperinflation environment. Hyperinflation never goes on for long, because it's a completely unsustainable way for a culture to exist. When the money they use is no good, they don't have the fundamental technology to survive. So that's coming, and that's always been coming. But what I find funny is that it's kind of already here. Kentucky now have passed 2 laws in order for facilitate government subsidies for Bitcoin mining within that state. That is effectively governments printing money to buy Bitcoin in a very roundabout way, but in essence, that's what they're doing. And that's America. The fact that that's happening now, and you've got state level mining is a way of governments printing money to buy Bitcoin, and it's been going on for a while. But the fact that America has now jumped onto it makes me think we are literally within I think a year or two of an incredible shift. And that's why the inevitable bear market that everyone expects in 2022, I don't think it's going to happen, because in 2022, that's the crux of all this. That's the crux of the absolute desperation. They are printing money and just throwing it at people now. In America, this isn't Venezuela, this isn't Nigeria, this is America. They're printing stimulus check after stimulus check, trillions of dollars being just pulled out of politicians' assholes and given to. They started doing reparations for black families in Chicago. Now, I'm not getting into the politics of that, but I am going to say, when politicians are just saying, here, have money, no strings attached, we don't, you know, it doesn't matter whether you agree with the racial justice of it or anything like that. Just what does that mean with regard to what they're giving you? Do you think that when a politician hands a whole ethnic group of people money, they were either forced to do it, or they just don't give a shit about what it is they're giving to you? They don't consider it valuable in any way. And I don't like these stimulus checks, these reparation payments. All they say to me is that the US government is done keeping up the facade of the US dollar being actually worth anything. And I can't believe we're seeing it before our own eyes, but they are printing and they are handing it away to everyone. And they are the 1.9 trillion stimulus bill that Joe Biden passed a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, we know that most of that doesn't go to your average American. Most of it gets handed to the wealthy elite. And the wealthy elite will just use it to further inflate all of the ridiculous bubbles in the stock market, in the housing market, and all of that stuff, which is why the S&P 500 is, as it always is, at all-time highs. Because these things are just used as a hedge against the dollar, and all that happens is it translates into slow robbery of the working and the middle classes, because their wages just can't keep up with the fact that everything else you might want to use your money for keeps getting more expensive faster than your wages can go up. So all that is to say, that's the macroeconomic environment. It's gone a bit fucking crazy because of COVID, and unfortunately, when it goes it's just a matter of time anyway before governments go crazy and ruin their own fiat currency. It's just part of. It's like the old Matrix thing. It's like we make the Matrix. There's always a one, and that one will destroy the Matrix. But then a new one is made, and we just have to do this. We can't. A fiat currency is a lie. It's bullshit, and it has its own death built into it, and if anyone thinks, yeah, but it won't be like that this time with the US dollar, they are deluding themselves. The US dollar is fundamentally a dying currency. They can't last forever because governments, due to their structure, cannot resist printing money. So this is just, let's keep going. Like, let's keep going with Bitcoin. Let's forget about any of the attachment to our status quo of the people saying, look, it's going to be all right. Everything will stay stable. I'll get my house. I'll pay off my mortgage, all that stuff. I'm going to take out my initial investment in Bitcoin. I can't believe people are still talking like this. You have way too much faith in the current system. It's not going to last that much longer. And in my opinion, the cracks have started showing in places where, if you know where to look, you can look at it's like looking at a fine looking house and just going, there's a crack in the foundation. Any seismic activity in this house is coming right down. It doesn't matter that the windows are brand spanking clean. So that's how I'm looking at these things now. And when the rush for the exit really begins, and when you're in the safety of the crowd and everyone's buying Bitcoin and everyone's wages are now in Bitcoin, that's when it won't be as rewarding to do it. And this is why the people that are not afraid to go against the herd and who aren't sheep in their mentality can transform their lives for not just themselves but their loved ones. And I encourage you to do this and to have conviction in your beliefs and to be brave with this, because I'm forever getting involved with new people, new clients, and telling them, and they're saying, is it a good time to buy now? Is it, should I sell here? When should I take out initial investment? All of these things, it's maddening to me, because I'm not I'm not an investment advisor. I don't do that. I teach people how to use Bitcoin and how to not lose your Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is and how it works. I don't care about financial advice, guys. I care about actual ownership of property and respect for property rights and providing for yourself, for your family, and creating a future that can be done when you have proper deflationary money and freeing yourself from a system that is is sucking all the life out of humanity for just completely free. These banks don't do anything, they contribute nothing. Central bankers, politicians, they do nothing. They get all of our hard work and because they've got control over the money we use. Opt out. Don't ask me about selling and buying dips and all this stuff. Yes, to answer one question I get a lot though, should I buy the dip? Yes, you should buy the dip. I'm not going to buy yet because I think it's going to dip. No, that's where you fail. You don't wait for dips. You buy them if they come, sure, but you don't wait for dips. The only thing you can, if you're going to buy Bitcoin, the answer is yes, you should buy Bitcoin. And if you're gonna wait, that means I'm not gonna buy Bitcoin. Okay, that's a bad strategy. Don't wait. Buy with what you can buy. If it dips afterwards, find money and buy even more of it. That's the way to buy Bitcoin. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is how Bitcoin works. If you want to buy Bitcoin, the time to do it is always yesterday. And anyway, I think I've made my point in this video that I'm not selling the tip to buy the dip. It's a complete misunderstanding of what the asset is. I don't want to be sitting in dollars for 6, 12, 18 months. No fucking way. I don't want to keep it in cash. I don't want to keep it in a bank. I don't have any use for it, and all it's going to do is lose value. Maybe it holds value against Bitcoin because Bitcoin's crashing so much. I don't care. I don't want to risk my Bitcoin for a stupid speculative play. And I hope you agree with me, and I hope you begin to take this asset more seriously than as something you put a few dollars in and watch it go up 30x, and then you sell and go back to dollars and ride off into the sunset. If that's your goal, you somehow missed the most important and revolutionary elements of what's going on here in favor of just seeing it as some damn tech stock, which it is not. So anyway, I'll sign off with that. Thanks so much for watching.